And these are the Oriveti Dynabird, the Oriveti Lowmaster, and the Oriveti OD200. And these are my honest audiophile impressions. I want to thank Oriveti for providing the Lowmaster, Dynabird, and the OD200 for review. I greatly appreciate it. Oriveti, you rock. All right, so the Oriveti Dynabird. This will set you back $100 from your bank account. It has a 9.2 beryllium coated dynamic driver, 16 ohms of impedance, 105 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 10 hertz to 20 kilohertz. The Lowmaster. This has a 10 millimeter composite dynamic driver and 2 balanced armatures. Impedance of 16 ohms, sensitivity of 106 decibels, frequency response range of 5 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and it'll set you back $150. And then the OD200. This will set you back $200 from your bank account. Has a 9.8 beryllium coated dynamic driver, 16 ohms of impedance, 108 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And today, we're going to talk about all three of the Orivetis and the differences that are between them and which one I prefer and why, and just overall how they compare to the Katori Zephyr. So let's show you what's inside both of the Dynabird and the Lowmaster. They do have the same identical unboxing experience. So you slide off the sleeve and you're greeted by a black box with an Oriveti logo on it. And then you have this little flip up. Boop, there you go. And you get a carrying case and a box of accessories, which includes your tips. And that's it. That's the only accessory you get. You get the same carrying case for both the Dynabird and the Lowmaster. Carrying case looks like this. It's a small pill shape, a little bit on the thick side, but definitely will fit in a bag or even like cargo pant pockets type of thing. Hard shell. It's got this nice little fabric kind of feel to it. It says Oriveti. And then you have a nice zipper. Opening it up, you have a strap to hold the IEM in place, and then a pocket up top, which you can include your tips. And the tips that are included are silicone, and they come in 2 different shapes. So you get the standard shape like olive grape narrow bore. These kind of remind me of like RHA tips, if you have ever used RHA tips in the past. And then you have a more shallow, a wide bore tip, and they both fit me. I was able to use them, but I did not prefer them. We'll talk about that in the later on in the live stream. And then let's show you what I do with it. The Lowmaster, same little carrying box, and you also get the same little strap and the same tips. All right, so build wise for these, you have the Dynabird is a very unique shape. So the Dynabird is kind of like an oversized T2 from Tin Hi-Fi. You got the bullet shape here, but then you have this extended part. They are a little bit on the thick side. It is made of metal. It's a little bit on the flat side. There is a slight angle, very smooth, but it's got a fairly lengthy nozzle. And when you put a tip on it, it extends out pretty good. So you're going to get pretty deep insertion with them. And then you have a 2-pin connection that goes down into a nice split. You have a cinch that doesn't work. It just flops around. And then it terminates into a 3.5. Overall, I like the cable. It is just a little bit on the kinky side. It never really completely lost that. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. And does tangle just a little bit, but for $100, I'm not really going to complain too much. The ear hook tension is just about right for this type of design. Popping them in your ears, and they just kind of disappear. Now, I did have to use foam tips with the Dynabird for a couple reasons. Number one, because of the weight of them being a little heavier and the way that they're built, the foam helped to support it a little bit better, but also it is a little bit more comfortable and it helps with sound. So isolation of outside noises is better with the foam tips. Definitely seals better. And it also helped to tame the upper mids and lower treble regions. So I find that with them in, I can wear them for a couple of hours without problems. With foam tips, silicone tips was a little bit less. And then outside isolation isn't the greatest. With foam tips, it was about 55% of outside noises being blocked. So the Dynabird is an okay IEM as far as build, isolation, and comfort. Not the best, but it's doable, especially with foam tips. Moving on to the Lowmaster. The Lowmaster has a more universal type of build to them. So the shells are more familiar shaped. You have an ergonomic fit here on the back. It is made of resin. Nozzle's a little bit on the shorter side. It's not as long as it is on the Dynabird, but they are definitely a lot lighter and smaller. With the Lowmaster, I was able to use the stock tips, and I found that they fit me just fine, and I had no issues there. Cable's the same as it is on the Dynabird. Popping them in the ears, I find that they just disappear. These are extremely comfortable. Even with that shorter nozzle, using those tips that are shaped like the RHA tips, it just snugs in the ears and just disappears. And I had no problems whatsoever. These isolate better than the Dynabird. I find that they're probably somewhere about 55 to 60% of outside noises being blocked. You can still hear a little bit that's going on, but it's very difficult to carry on conversations. Things are more muffled, and so you kind of have to pop one out of your ears to carry on a conversation. The build of them I do find also just to be a little bit more attractive. They have these cool little carbon type of face plates on them, and they have a little bit of branding. And you also have a vent hole. Overall, I just find that the Lowmaster is more attractive, more comfortable. I can wear them for a little bit longer, even with silicone tips on, than I can the Dynabird. All right, moving on to the OD200. Now, the OD200 comes in a significantly larger box. And taking off the sleeve, you again get a black box, but instead of the lid coming off, this time it just pops up. And on the top here, you have an area for the shells, and also you get a little tray of filters. And we'll talk about those in a moment. And then when you pull out the bottom, you have a tray. You get a little box that has accessories in it, which are basically all the tips that are provided. And then you have an area for the carrying case, which is a lot different than the carrying cases that came with the Dynabird and Lowmaster. All right, let's set this to the side over here. So talk about the carrying case first. It's got this green kind of outline stitching, which is kind of cool. Probably not going to fit in a pocket as easy. Now, you know, obviously cargo pants would probably fit, but this is more for a bag. does have a snap on it, and when you lift it, there's plenty of room for the OD200 and the cable to lay in, and it's very secure. It's not going to pop open or anything like that. It's going to protect very nicely. And then you have this box which says accessories on it, and when you undo the back side here, very carefully you can pull it out, and you get all the different tips, which don't stay in it very well. They do pop out quite a bit, so do be careful of that. Tips don't stay in. You get two different types of silicone tips, just like you do with the Lowmaster and Dynabird, but you also get small, medium, and large of foam tips as well. We'll set these to the side, that way I don't drop it more out. You'll also get a exchangeable, swappable terminations for your cable. So here's your 4.4, and they also include 3.5, which I'm currently using, and you also get 2.5. So you get two balanced connections, 2.5, 4.4, and then single-ended of 3.5. So it's a nice touch that Oriveti includes all of that with the OD200. All right, let's show you the cable and shells. So the cable, the ear hooks are a little bit on the flimsy side for the OD200. I find that the shells being all metal are rather heavy, and having somewhat flimsy of ear hooks isn't really a good match and pairing. I do wish that the ear hooks had a little bit more tension, but once they're in their ears, it really isn't as big of a deal when using foam tips, and we'll talk about that in more length here in a moment. You have a nice termination, or excuse me, a split with a cinch that is extremely tight. The other ones on the Lowmaster and Dynabird was very loose. This one is extremely snug. It's very hard to move, and it definitely doesn't move once you have it in place. But it is a nice split. You have a little bit of branding. And then you have a fairly chunky termination. The termination just pulls off, and then you just line it up and pop it into place. It's a little bit on the chunky side. It's not too bad though, but it is a cable that I'm not really in love with. So it's nice and lightweight, and it's fairly controllable, but those ear hooks just aren't really something that I enjoy a whole lot. And it's just kind of a frustration because it twists up a lot. It's a really a thin cable. All right, fit wise. So popping them in your ears, using foam tips, I found that they were nice and snug and isolated nicely. Using silicone tips, I did not find them to be very comfortable at all. They actually fell out of my ears, and I was adjusting them a lot. So with foam tips, definitely more secure. Comfort wise, I can wear these for about an hour and a half before they start getting uncomfortable. I find that isolation of outside noises is quite good with the foam tips, probably somewhere about 60%. They're about as good as the Lowmaster is. I would say the Lowmaster and the OD200 both are significantly better than the Dynabird is when it comes to isolation. Comfort-wise, these are not as good. The shells are rather attractive, though. They are made of metal. They have an ergonomic fit, but they're heavy. And that's what causes the problems with the discomfort, is the weight of the shell is just significantly heavy, and especially with silicone tips, it just pulls. The filters. So it's not the longest of nozzles, and it just twists off. Be very careful. It's extremely easy to lose these. And then that tray that you store them on is not very big. And so that is also very easy to lose. All right, so using the different tips, foam tips definitely were my choice, not only for comfort and for fit, but also for the sound. So with silicone tips, I whether it was wide bore or narrow bore, it did not matter with the OD200. The OD200s were too bright with either of them. Wide bore, it was way too bright. With narrow bore, it was bright. So foam tips tamed that. And then if you throw on the different filters, these ones are the black ones, that brightness and hotness really kicked in and they became excessive and aggressive and very, very intense. I could not listen to them, even with foam tips, with the black filter. Black filter was definitely no go for me. The silver filter, which comes standard, was tolerable with foam tips. All right, so all three of them, the OD200, the Lowmaster, and the Dynabird, were fairly easy to drive. All of them are 16 ohm and are 105 dB. I think the OD200 is 108 dB, but all the other two are 105 dB. I mean, they're all 16 ohm. And they're all really easy to drive. Had no issues whatsoever using them with very, very unpowerful dongles. Anything from the periodic audio rhodium all the way up to the more powerful stuff, was able to drive them, no problem. So if you have a very weak source, don't worry about it. The Orivetis will be happy and content. Now, the Lowmaster and the OD200 do scale with a little bit better sound, and also running them balanced. I found that that brought out a little bit more potential. The Dynabird really didn't show that very much. It did not scale very well. So they aren't really that picky. They do reward you a little bit with some of the sources that are better. How do the Dynabird sound? So the Dynabird is a fun V-shaped sound signature, but has brightness and hotness to it, and it's kind of peaky in the uppers. The bass of the Dynabird is engaging. It has a nice thump to it, and there's enough of a presence. You can kind of get the head banging thing going on, and for the most part, it's just a general okay everyday type of listen. The bass has enough thump, enough punch, and enough impact and slam in the mid bass to keep things moving, with enough rumble and grumble in the sub bass to come up and make an appearance when called upon. But it really isn't this like like deep down type of rumble and grumble. It's not a super overly textured bass, but it has enough to kind of keep the toes tapping and the music flowing. Tone-wise, it's all right. It's not the most natural and most accurate sounding, but it's not off-putting either. And then details and resolution are okay for $100 IEM in its price point, but it's not the most detailed and resolving. Mids. The mids are unbalanced. So the lower mids are slightly recessed, and then the upper mids are forward and sibilant and bright sounding. They're on the verge of it. They're not extreme, but if you're sensitive to upper mids presence, the Dynabird may be a little too sizzly, a little too sibilant, and just a little too forward for you. It does throw off tonality, and especially strings, pianos, things like that. They'll sound a little bit thin and slightly tinny in the lower mid-range, and as you get into the uppers, they kind of move forward, get a little bit more body, but also at the same time they sound like they're being forced a little bit too much, and they get a little bit metallic and unnatural. Going into the treble has some excitement in the lower treble and in the upper treble ranges. And overall, it's just kind of a peaky treble. It's not the best controlled treble. And I find that it has a little too much excitement at times. The Dynabird has that fun factor about it. So depending on what kind of music you're listening to, it may not bother you. But if you're sensitive to peaky treble, the Dynabird may be an issue. As far as tonality goes, the tonality of the Dynabird in the treble is a little bit on the metallic side, and it does have a little bit of tinniness to it. And detail retrieval and resolution, just like the bass and the mids, isn't the greatest. It's slightly a little bit on the smeary and glassy side. Soundstage is not very big on the Dynabird. It's not a very large soundstage at all. It's not intimate, but it's close to it. It's a very small stage. It does okay with its imaging within the very small size of stage, and it has a very small depth also. You really can't look into the stage very well. It's not a stage that you can really nitpick, but if you're just enjoying your music and having fun listening to music, the Dynabird does okay. But if you really want to nitpick, it's going to struggle to give you what you're seeking. Layering is all right, except for on busier tracks, more complex tracks, the layering can get a little bit muddled and a little bit jumbled together. And as mentioned, the imaging is okay. You can kind of follow things from side to side, but you really can't hone in and pick it apart and go, it's right there. It's more like it's in this area. And it's kind of a large area that it is. And things will track across the stage, but it's always kind of over here, right there. And there's not a lot of in front and behind and moving around on the stage. Detail retrieval is adequate for a $100 price point. This is not something that's going to be top of the class in the $100 price point of IEMs. This is average at best. Resolution is also average at best. As mentioned, in the uppers, in the mids, and in the treble, it can be a bit on the smeary and glassy side. Tonality wise, it's not the most natural sounding. It's not really off-putting, but at times you'll hear some more metallicism, especially in the upper mids and treble regions. Things will sound a little tinny, a little bit sheeny sounding. The Lowmaster. Now, when you think of the Lowmaster's name, you would think that the Lowmaster was a bassy IEM, and that's the furthest from the truth. The Lowmaster is not a bassy IEM at all. I find that the bass of the Lowmaster is pretty close to being linear with a little bit of a shelf in the sub bass, just a little bit, but it is not a bassy boy at all. I find that the bass is very well controlled. It extends nicely and there's good quality. There's not a whole lot of quantity. The Lowmaster has a little bit of authority, a little bit of power, and it has just enough in the mid bass to keep the toes tapping and the arms flailing, but it's not a super expressive bass. It gets expressive when called upon, and it stays very well controlled. Has very nice details, nice resolution, and good tonality. Overall, I like the bass of the Lowmaster, but don't look at it as being a master of the lows. This is a quality of the lows, and it's not really a bassy IEM at all. Going into the mids have nice control, and they have a evenness with the bass. So they're not super forward, and they're not recessed. They are very even keeled when it comes to the bass. It's pretty close to being a neutral leaning. There is a slight uptick in the mids, but it's not to the point where it's shouty or expressively forward. It just has a little bit of presence to it. And I find that just like the bass, they have nice tonality and nice naturalism and a very good tone and timbre. Also, the details and resolution are very good on the mids of the Lowmaster. Going into the treble extends nicely. There's good air and space. There's a nice little bit of bite and edge without being too expressive, but it has just enough, and it walks that line of being too much and not enough. And it has very good tonality, just like the bass and the mids. And then the details and resolution is also very good, just like the mids and the bass. Soundstage of the Lowmaster is also very nice. I find that the Lowmaster has what I would call a natural sounding stage. You get this nice width to it, and it does a good job of telling you differences in venues, small, medium, large, and every now and then you'll get that grand size. But for the most part, small, medium, and large, it does a decent job in revealing the differences. And then you get nice depth as well. You can look into the stage a couple of rows, and it has good layering. Everything has its own little space and place. So for the most part, I find that the stage of the Lowmaster does a good job of revealing sizes, and also does a good job with tracking and placing things. You can kind of go, it's right there. It's not super pinpoint, but it's better than the Dynabird is, in that it's a very small area. It's right in this area. It's right in this area. And then you can track things across, and you can place things behind and in front without it crowding out and fighting for place. It does a pretty good job in that regard. The Lowmaster does a good job with tone and timbre as well. Instruments sound fairly close to realism, and they're lifelike instruments and vocalists. There's not any metallicism or tinniness. There's nice note weight, nice body weight to the note, and everything just has this pleasurableness about it. It's a pretty close to neutral sounding IEM in that regard when it comes to tone and timbre. Detail retrieval is not the best, but at $150, it does a pretty good job, and it's pretty competitive with other $150 IEMs. There's very few that I can think of that are better when it comes to detail retrieval. Resolution is pretty competent as well. There are moments where it is a little bit on the smeary and glassy side, especially in the uppers, but for the most part, detail retrieval and resolution is also very good. So the Lowmaster for $150 is pretty competitive and does a decent job keeping things on a neutral playing field. Going on to the OD200. The OD200 has a significant roll-off in the bass. The OD200 is a more mid-forward type of sound signature, and I found that the OD200 is more mid-bass focused. The sub-bass drops off significantly, so you get a lot of mid-bass thump, a lot of impact, punch, and slam, but there's not that texture and that rumble and grumble that you get from sub bass, and it just doesn't feel like it's a fulfilling type of bass. It's all about the boop, boop, boop part in the mid bass, and not the thumping and the part from the sub bass. Upper bass also is somewhat bloated and does bleed into the lower mids, adding a little bit of fullness to it, but it also can become a little bit on the muddy and bloated side on more complex bassy tracks. So the mid bass and the upper bass are the feature point of the OD200. I find that the OD200 bass has good details and is fairly well controlled in the mid bass. Going into the upper bass, it does bleed into those lower mids just slightly, and then the sub bass really doesn't exist. There's not a whole lot in the sub bass region. Tone and timbre of the bass is pretty good as well. Sounds fairly natural and accurate. Mids. Mids are forward. Mids are shouty. Mids are aggressive. Mids have a lot of presence to them. They're intense. They're forthright. Putting on the black nozzle and they become extreme. So take extreme forthright, extreme aggressive, extreme hot, extreme sibilant, extreme shouty with the black nozzle. I could not use them at all with the black nozzle. The OD200 mids also throw off the tone and timbre. The mids are too forward and they become a little bit like strained or stretched, forced, and it sounds unnatural. There's a lot of metallicism in the mids of the OD200, and it just is not really that pleasurable. Now, putting on foam tips, I found that helped to kind of tame that and to give some body and to kind of cover up the metallicism a little bit. And it's not as noticeable and it's more tolerable that way. But with silicone tips, it's very, very intense. I find that the sibilance is pretty extreme, even with foam tips on. And the OD200 to me was just very shouty and very sibilant in the mids and not really that natural sounding. Treble. The treble is very peaky on the OD200, and it has a lot of bite, a lot of edge, a lot of crispness, a lot of intensity. And just like the mids, it can get very excessive when you put on the black nozzle. Using foam tips does tame that slightly, but again, it's just a little too much, and there's just a little bit, it's just a little too intense for my ears. And if you're sensitive to mids and treble intensity and elevation, I would shy away from the OD200. Soundstage. Soundstage is the widest between the Dynabird and the Lowmaster and the OD200. It definitely has a lot of air and space and nice width to it. Also does a good job of tracking. It's also the most accurate in its placement, so you can pinpoint things and you can follow things along. And it does a really good job of telling you when things move in and out and when they swap, and you can lock on and follow it. Also has really good depth. You can look into the stage and place things very well. Problem is, it's very intense and very specific and very forthright in pointing it out. It's here it is, here it is, here it is. It's not a very friendly and a very approachable listen. This is a, here you go, here's the info that you want. Details are good. It's a very detailed IEM, and it is the best of the details of these three IEMs, the Dynabird, the Lowmaster, and the OD200. But it's also very forthright and giving that information. Resolution-wise, it does pretty good, except for those intense elevations in the mids and in the treble. Those can be a little bit too much, and they can be a little bit too intense. And then also they get this kind of glassy, sheeny presentation of those details also. Tone and timbre is a little bit off-putting on the OD200. It's not the most natural sounding, especially in the mids and in the treble. Things get a little bit glassy, and they have this little sheeniness, and they also get thinner than they are in the lower mids and in the bass section. And so they just have a little bit of thinner note weight, and it just becomes a little unnatural sounding. So, OD200, Lowmaster, whoop, this cable, the Lowmaster, we'll get it untangled here, there we go. Still tangled. And then the Dynabird. All three of them, I don't mind. They're all different. They all have certain things that they do that I enjoy. The OD200, detailed, pretty good resolving, nice staging, able to track things, but it's intense. Dynabird, fun sounding, not the most technical. If I'm just going to jam away and don't really care about any of the information, they're doable. But the Lowmaster, if I'm going to pick one of these three and use it more regularly, it would be the Lowmaster. Why? Because the Lowmaster has the best tonality, has the best tone and timbre, and is the most neutral, and also does a good job with details and resolution and staging. Even though it's not as good as the OD200 in those cases, it is the more approachable and the more listenable and the more accurate. And so the Lowmaster, how does it compare to this? Now, this is the Katori Zephyr. The Katori Zephyr is larger, but is more comfortable. I find that the Zephyr actually fits my ears a little bit better and seals in my ears slightly better. I also find that the Zephyr is more comfortable. I'm able to wear it for longer. And even though it's bigger, to me, it just fits me better. When it comes to the sound, to me, the Zephyr is more detailed and better resolving. It also has more accurate note weight and better tone and timbre and is more natural. Also, the Zephyr has the more linear bass and more accurate bass. It's not quite as elevated, and it also isn't quite as bloaty in the mid bass, upper bass region. The mids are more even and more neutral, and then the treble is slightly rolled off. If I had one nitpick about the Zephyr, I do wish that I had just a little bit more air, a little bit more extension into the treble, and had a little bit more crispness. But if I were to take the Zephyr or the, where is it? Lowmaster, I would take the Zephyr because it, to me, sounds the more correct, the more natural and more accurate sounding and tone and timbre, better detailed and resolving, and is more neutral throughout. Soundstage wise, also the Zephyr is a little bit more accurate in its placement. It's a little more pinpoint and also has better depth and layering. And overall, I just find that the Zephyr is the more complete sound. The Oriveti is close, but just kind of lacks in refinement, whereas the Katori Zephyr is the more complete one, and I would use that on the stage in a monitoring situation. So if I were to pick the OD200, the Dynabird, or the Lowmaster, I'd definitely go Lowmaster. And there we go. There is the review of the Oriveti, Dynabird, Lowmaster, and OD200. We'll open it up to questions, comments, concerns. Set all these over here out of the way so I don't lose them. And let me open up YouTube and look at the comments that have come through. I do want to thank everybody for joining. I do appreciate you all showing up on a Sunday afternoon, and do appreciate you all coming by. Let me get this. Oh wait, I can't open it this way. I'm using a different laptop today, and I forgot. You can't have my my YouTube live stream opened up on the same account that I'm streaming on. All right, so while I'm muttering around trying to get my computer all started here, I want to thank everybody for showing up and for joining. And if you have any questions, comments, please place them in the chat and I'll get to them. And skip it. There we go. And also I want to, if you enjoyed the live stream so far, the review, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down. I understand. And don't forget that if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can do that through YouTube memberships and also in the chat, so you can send chats. So hi, Vegan Vicar, Rodney, and Member Barry. Thank you very much for swinging by and chatting. Any any questions, comments, thoughts about, whatever your Sunday's doing, are you, did you, what are you up to there? And, appreciate everybody here. So who's going to ask the first question? Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. So normally a question that I get asked here, we'll just knock this one out, is what's next to be reviewed. So let me pull up my review schedule and we will, let's see, we have a few different things in-house right now to review. A lot of DACs and amps that need to be reviewed. We have up top here the IFI Valkyrie, and we also have the FIO K17, and we also have the FIO S15, which is a streamer, which I haven't set up on my desk yet, since they did an update. So I'll get to that, but I'm going to do the K17 first. We also have the, well, you can't see it because of all the boxes, but I have a couple of Doak Audios, a K5, a P1 Plus, which is a tube amp, and then a couple of Fossies that aren't on the desk either. A couple of speaker amps, the MC331, the GR40, excuse me, and then also the Fossi K7, which is a gaming DAC amp. We also have the Creative Audio G8, which is also very similar to the K7. So I don't know if I'll do both of those at the same time or if I'll do those in separate reviews. They are different but similar, so I haven't decided exactly on that yet. We also have a couple of dongles. We have a Tantrum Stargate 2 and the Sansei Miori SA500, which is a very small dongle. I think it comes in at like $70. I didn't know Sansei Miori made those. I thought they only made IEMs, but apparently they make DAC amps also, which is very interesting. We also have a couple of headphones. We have the Rose Technics Distant Mountain, the Grell AOE1 or whatever that model number is, and we have the Kiwi Ears Aether. It's very similar to the planar that they have. But it's a very interesting headphone. In fact, I have it right here. So it's a closed back dynamic with a planar driver in it. So it's a hybrid closed back headphone. I think it comes in at 300, 350, somewhere in that price range. Very, very interesting headphone that definitely is going to be getting a review in the near future. So be on the lookout for that. It's from Kiwi Ears. You don't see too many hybrid headphones. And then we also have, where is it? Hold on. We have a cable. And I know, am I begging to get tortured in the comments? Absolutely. So we have the Effect Audio AXC, which is a hybrid IEM cable that takes the Aries and the Cadmus and mixes the cables together, and so you get both silver and copper hybrid. Very interesting cable that'll be getting reviewed on the channel. And then I think that pretty much covers what I have in-house right now. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to be coming up next, but we do have a couple of different IEMs and things like that, but we'll get you all taken care of. All right, so I see some questions here. Hey, Dave, thank you with your reviews. You're very welcome. Thank you very much, which are done very well. Is there a reason why you do not include your music library? My music library is actually included in all reviews in the description. I do not talk about it very often in a video review, just because I personally don't like reviews that do that, but it is included in the description. Also, if you go to my website, thehonestaudiophile.com, there are several different write-ups about music that I use. So that's where that is. You are considering the X Duo XAO2. Can IEMs be used with it? Yes, absolutely. The X Duo XAO2 is a excellent DAC amp, in my opinion, and it works very well with IEMs. I use it daily, especially when reviewing IEMs. Love the X Duo XAO2. It has become one of my staple DAC amps that I use. Okay, so what is your favorite IEM and headphone? Favorite IEM is the Westone Mach 60, and favorite headphone is the Audeze LCD 5. Fred asks, do you have a top 3 IEMs that you're using currently? Yeah, I actually do. So, Westone Mach 60. Thea Audio Oracle Mark III. Tanzu Neza. And you can throw a few others in there if you want more budgety, cheaper stuff. I also have some of those. But here, I'll show you what they look like. So there's the Neza. And they're kind of hard to see in here, but there's the Thea Audio Oracle Mark III. And then crammed in this little itty bitty case, along with a Katori cable, are the Westone Mach 60s. And those are my 3 go-to IEMs that I use to do comparisons with. I don't always mention them in the reviews, but all 3 of those get compared to every single IEM. You're very welcome. Any other questions? So we have about 10-15 minutes left on this, as we're trying to keep these live streams to about an hour long every week. So if you have any questions, you got about 10-15 minutes left. I do appreciate everybody swinging by. I know that most of the time we're going to try to do live streams on Saturday, but this week I was part of doing the sound for a wedding, so I had to be away pretty much all day yesterday and Friday. So Sunday was the only day that the live stream would work in the schedule. But I do want to get one out every single week to keep you guys connected. And also, I kind of enjoy doing live reviews. It gives you a different perspective as to how I do a review. So when I do reviews, I just plop down and start talking. And if I make a mistake, if I say something totally stupid, or I stumble over my words, or I have, a significant pause where or I start coughing, or, stuff like that, I'll stop the video and start over from the beginning. I don't do any editing. I don't splice clips together or anything of the sort. Now, every now and then I will hit the pause button on a recording, cough, take a drink, start recording again. If I can catch it in time, but for the most part, I'll just start over. I think about the average is normally about 10 takes to do a review. Doing it live, you get to see me muddle through, and struggle. Today was actually a fairly straightforward, at least it seemed like. I don't know if I would have been happy keeping the video and uploading. I may have started it over at the beginning. It was a little rough, but this gives you a different perspective as to how I do my reviews. I just sit down and start talking. I don't use scripts, notes, no editing or anything. It's just, okay, I'm content with this. Hit stop and then upload it to YouTube. And in YouTube editor, I'll add in the description notes and all those little pop-ups that you'll see on the videos. You know, hey, here's a link to this, or here's a link to my previous video, or, you know, things like that. That's the only editing that I do. So this is kind of a different approach to the same process for me. And I thought that the community would like to see how I do things in that way. I'm very open, and I want you all to experience it the way I experience it. So here you go. That's why I do these live streams. Plus also to chat with you all, and, you know, whatever is on your mind. If you don't have questions, you don't have questions. We can just chat. You can listen to me talk or anything like that. Yes, there is a video on the Mach 60. Anything new coming out that you really want to review? I actually want to hear the new Audeze, the S20. It looks really interesting. And then there's the new Sennheisers I want to hear and do reviews of. Since I didn't get to Oxpona this year, I didn't get to hear them. I haven't really been following a lot of the DAC amp stuff, so I'm not sure if there's anything new there. There's a couple of IEM makers that have hinted at some new models coming out. So be curious about those, see if I get some opportunities there. Some of the more flagship stuff coming out from a couple of different brands, be curious about. Also, I'd be really curious. So what are your guys' thoughts on reviewers that have a collaboration? Should that reviewer review their own product, you know, or review that collab product? Or should they just do some sort of like, hey, here's the new collab coming out. This was the goal in making it. It's based off of this, or it's, you know, based off of this IEM. We tweaked these things and not give an impression, or should they just do an impression like they do for all the other gear? Or should they just allow the other reviewers to review the product and to give the opinion to the public? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Excuse me. Personally, for me, I think that a reviewer, if a reviewer does a collab, that reviewer shouldn't give an opinion on the actual product's performance. They shouldn't do a full review on it. They should be like, hey, you know, it was based on this review, or this product that I reviewed or heard. Here's a link to that review. And then we made a goal and intended to kind of tweak it in this regard. And this is what we did and why. And just leave it at that instead of giving your own impression of how it went. You know, I think that the the product turned out to be excellent when it came to the bass. We wanted to improve the bass, and we did this, you know, or the treble. Instead of giving your opinion about how it worked out, just let the other reviewers do that aspect of it and just say, we intended to fix this problem or to change this. Let's see, Paul. Let other reviewers do the reviews. Just let us know when it's coming out. Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's coming out on September 31st or whatever. It's going to cost this amount. It's based off of this or it's a brand new, straight up product, never, new development. And this was our intent and our goal to produce. I hope you enjoy it. And then let the other people do that's the way I'm thinking, Paul. Fred, not very fond of collabs. It would require for them to be objective, especially since music is subjective. Yep, absolutely. Plus, the hobby is not as forgiving when it comes to blind buys. That's very true. Blind buys are tricky. Like some consumers are okay with it. They're just like, I know this brand, or I know this reviewer reviewed it and tends to like this. I tend to agree with this reviewer, so I'll take a chance. And then other ones are like, price point, this is a little scary. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So the objectivity definitely would have to come into play from the initial start. I do think that it comes down to the way Paul and you both have put it, is that the reviewer that's involved with the collab just kind of states the obvious, price point, when it's being released, what it's based off of, what it includes, and what the main goal was, the objective part of producing it, and then let everybody else kind of relay how it performs. And then it's up to the consumer and the viewer to go, well, Billy Bob likes it, and I like Billy Bob's other recommendations, so it's within my budgety, side, so I'll take a chance. Or I'm gonna wait until my friend Johnny picks one up, and then I can hear it, and maybe then I'll purchase it. Yeah, that's the tricky part. And for me as a reviewer, I've gotten to hear the collabs, but when I sit there and really think about being a consumer, I'm going, have any of them truly stood out as something that I would just blind buy? And I'm like at that spot, kind of like, maybe, but then would I've been happy, So yeah, that's a tricky spot to be in. Totally understand that. I appreciate your guys' take on that. Yeah, there's not a lot of wiggle room in regards to that, for sure. And I think it's more of the unwillingness to buy blindly versus the, I trust this reviewer or I trust this brand enough to pay it no matter what. I don't think it really comes down to whether or not it's an all DD or an all BA or a hybrid, tribrid, quadbrid, any of those sorts. I don't think that really plays as much into the collab part as it does the brand name, the reviewer associated with it, the reviewers that get one ahead of time to kind of get the word out about how it performs, and price. I think those are the four factors that play more into it than anything else, at least in my opinion. Let's see. Do you take into consideration or watch other reviewers as a fellow reviewer? Yes and no. So, if it's something that I didn't get in for a review and probably won't get into a review, but I'm curious about it as a product, maybe to purchase for myself, I'll watch reviews. If it's something that I'm thinking I'm going to get in for a review or that I have received for a review, I wait to watch other reviewers until I've done my review. And I lay that out in my review process that's on my website and that I post in descriptions often during videos. So And I do that because I don't want to get like compromised and kind of have other people tell me what I'm hearing. I want to hear it for myself and make my own opinion without having other outside sources impacting my opinion. And I do that also talking on Discord with other with reviewer friends. I'll talk very vaguely about my opinion, and they'll do the same to me because they respect my opinion, and they don't want to impede their judgments on mine. Um, but yeah, I do watch other reviewers, but most of it's for personal purchases. Now, if I end up watching a review, like I did this with the Mytech, for example, I watched reviews of the Mytech Liberties and the Liberty HPA a lot, and then I ended up purchasing them, and then I did reviews of them later on. But I had already made up my mind I was purchasing it at that time, so I didn't see that those reviews impacted my opinion of the device because I hadn't heard it yet, if that makes sense. Good question. Anything else real quick? And then I need to head off. I do have to be somewhere later this evening. So actually not later, in about an hour and a half. So last questions, last call, and then we will do this again next week. I will post either Thursday or Friday when the next live stream will be. I'll put a community post in. So make sure that you hitting that thumbs up and notification bell. That way you'll know when the notification comes in. And when the next video is uploaded, there will be a video review uploaded for Wednesday in the morning. Normally it uploads either 6 or 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The review will be to be determined. I do not know at this exact moment which one it will be. So got some decision making to make today. But don't forget to hit that and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this live stream. And I'm curious if you've heard any of the Orivetis, what your opinions are. Drop them down in the comments and be curious. So anyways, thank you all for swinging by. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, thumbs on to the video. Check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support channel. All that kind of stuff is listed down below. Speaking of supporting the channel, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon, YouTube memberships, also through one-time gifts. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's all kinds of ways to do it. Check out those links down below. Also, down below, gear recommendations, music recommendations, gear rankings, all kinds of stuff listed down below. Check all that out. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy. I'll talk to you later. Maybe. There we go. Have a good one.